The following program is brought to you in part by Logisticare, the nation's leading provider of specialized transportation network management to state and local government clients. By Maine's credit unions, now is the time for a credit union. There is one for you. And by MacPage, developing relationships, earning trust, addressing complex issues, and making a difference.
Welcome to Pingree and Katz, the main event. In our left corner, we have Hannah Pingree, former House Majority Leader and Speaker of the House. In our right corner, we have Senator Roger Katz of Augusta, representing District 24. This week, Roger and Hannah have assembled a panel of experts to discuss tough Maine issues affecting the entire state. To wrap it up, we'll visit with Gary Crocker as he gives us his view from West Gardner. It's all right here with Pingree and Katz, the main event.
And this whole energy thing, it's such a complicated issue. I mean, you have the issues of wind turbine and siting. I happen to be a big fan of wind power. I look at 3 turbines, right across from my house. But there's so many complicated issues. The issues to ratepayers, what it means for climate change, what kind of incentives it takes to really get an industry going. So we got a lot of complicated issues to talk about this show.
It really is. And, it sounds simple. We all want to have solar power. We all want to have wind power. We all want to have geothermal. But how we do that and how we deal with it in terms of public policy is complicated because we have a very high cost of power here in Maine, and we want to do everything we can to get the cost of that power down at the same time as we're encouraging these. So we're going to have a terrific panel to talk about that as we discuss the politics and the policy of renewable energy here in the state of Maine. We'll be right back.
At MacPage, we believe in developing relationships, earning trust, addressing complex issues, and making a difference. We enjoy the people we serve and care about the work we do, providing integrated accounting, consulting, and tax services to our clients throughout New England and across the country. Please visit us at macpage.com to learn more.
The trend is clear. More Maine people are joining credit unions. The reasons are clear. Credit unions offer something different from banks: true financial value, loan rates that are usually lower, products and services with low fees or none at all. That's because credit unions are owned by their members, people just like you, who create a community that welcomes you wherever you are in life. Discover why a credit union is your best financial choice. Now is the time.
So, renewable energy here in Maine, where should we be headed? Well, Hannah and I are very lucky today because we have a distinguished group of people to help us answer and debate that question. First of all, Patrick Woodcock, who is the director of the Governor's Energy Office, and Mark Vannoy, an engineer by trade who's on the Public Utilities Commission, one of the 3 commissioners. Hannah?
And I've got a great crew on my side. I have Phil Coupe, who's the co-founder of ReVision Energy, as well as Jeremy Payne, who's the executive director of the Maine Renewable Energy Association. So first question is for you two, and I'm going to ask you both the same question. Why should Maine be investing in renewable energy? What does it mean for jobs, our climate, as well as ratepayers?
Well, Hannah, the great news for Mainers is that we have abundant renewable resources in the form of wind, tidal, biomass, and solar energy. And since I spend most of my time focusing on solar, I think it's worth pointing out that the cost for solar energy has dropped by 75% over the past 8 years, creating an opportunity for homeowners and business owners to earn 8% to 10% annual return on investment from a solar project. And the job creation angle is also very strong. ReVision Energy has been in business for 10 years. We've grown from 2 people to 65 people today.
Great. Jeremy?
Well, I think clean energy offers us a real economic and environmental opportunity. We've got a natural resource advantage of having the wind, the water, the woods, and the sun, as Phil just mentioned. So that's something we do have here in the state. We don't have coal, we don't have oil, we don't have natural gas. We're never going to find those deposits here. So that's the natural resource advantage we have. And what that's provided us in the last 10 or so years is about $2 billion worth of investment. about 750 different Maine businesses benefiting from this clean energy development, about $18 million annually in property taxes paid to Maine communities. So it's a real economic opportunity. And then just in terms of the environmental benefits, doing it in a way that's consistent with Maine values. It's clean air, it's clean water, and I think that's the type of thing that people here are looking for.
Great.
A little bit of a complicated subject. It's hard to disagree with anything you just heard, I suspect, Patrick. The governor's policy, the administration's policy toward how we develop renewables and how much of our resources we put into it, what's the summary of that?
Well, I wouldn't disagree with what was outlined previously. I think the one amendment that I would make is all our policies really need to be aligned at one focus and one focus alone, and that is helping Mainers with exorbitant energy costs, helping businesses be competitive. We are an outlier with our energy costs. We do have these resources. Let's make sure that they work for Mainers with their energy costs, with our businesses, so they can employ more Mainers.
Okay, in the Public Utilities Commission, Mark, you regulate a good deal of what goes on with electricity here. How much do you get into how much subsidy we're going to be pouring into renewable development, and how do you make those decisions?
Well, basically the legislature makes those decisions as far as statute goes, and we carry out the policy directive of the legislature. But I'd really preface any of this discussion with what took place in the late 90s as far as the restructuring of the electricity market. And what took place there was that we divested from our utilities all generation assets, and we went to a competitive market. That competitive market has daily pricing, day-ahead pricing, and a capacity market that looks out 3 years into the future. And the real point of all of that was to shift risk from ratepayers to shareholders. So I think the question in all of this policy discussion is, do we want to go forward with that competitive market, or do we want to enact legislation that might change some of that features of that competitive market?
Because development of renewable energy and getting the lowest cost next week for power are not always the same, right?
That's absolutely true.
And that's something we all struggle with, yeah?
So we spent a lot of this last session and the last couple years in Augusta talking about renewable energy. Specifically, there was a solar bill on the table. So Phil, just tell me what happened in Augusta in the last year from your perspective and what it means for Mainers.
Well, these are tough choices we're making as a state. As Patrick just said, we do have some of the highest energy costs in the region, and the reason for that is that we're at the end of the pipeline for everything. You know, too many people stand between us and the Marcellus Shale and the tar sands in Alberta. So we fought very hard to get a solar rebate bill passed this year, and we came very close. The governor vetoed that bill. We came 2 votes shy of overriding the veto. So, today Maine is the only state in New England without any direct policy support in the form of a solar rebate. And fortunately, the economics for solar are still good enough that people are moving forward with solar projects. However, if we're going to subsidize natural gas development, we believe that we should simultaneously be subsidizing the development of renewable energy, because when the fossil fuels run out, we're going to need the renewables there to pick up the slack.
Great. And Jeremy, how would you characterize the last couple years from the perspective of renewable energy, specifically wind? I know we had a major change between the Baldacci administration and the current governor. Where has the legislature and policy gone in the last couple years?
Well, I think by and large, the legislation that created the wind power industry here in Maine, the Wind Energy Act, has basically remained the same. There's been some modest tweaks. There have certainly been considerable efforts from a variety of corners to either tweak or repeal entirely that act. But I mean, sort of getting back to what Phil was talking about, when you think about energy policy, it's important to weigh the costs and the benefits. So you have to look at, if you are going to provide this subsidy, what is the benefit you receive in return? And I think that's really the thing that we need to be aware of. But I think wind is a real exciting opportunity for the state. I mean, it's really one of the only industries that's investing here. But we have a lot of competition. You know, we've got a good wind resource, the best wind in New England, 19th best in the country, but there's a lot of competition for this capital investment. And as the governor likes to say, capital investment goes where it's welcomed, or goes stays where it's welcomed. I don't remember the exact line, but bottom line is if we don't take care of it and make sure that they have predictable, reasonable regulatory outcomes, this investment won't stay in Maine.
Great.
Goes where it's welcome, stays where it's appreciated. I think that's what he says. Commissioner, as you struggle with the cases that come before you, though, you do have to make decisions under the statute of how much Maine ratepayers, people who are in their homes paying their electric bills every month, will subsidize the expansion of some of these forms of energy, particularly in this case in wind power. How do you do that balancing?
Yes, well, there are a couple of different statutes. So some statutes really do the balancing for us, like the Community Renewable Act, which really lays out straightforwardly, if you meet these requirements, you get a long-term contract, you can go forward and build. Where it gets more complicated is on our general long-term contracting authority, you have to show net ratepayer benefit. So it has to really lower costs. So on that score, it's much more difficult. But I would point out that most of the development in Maine, I think, is being driven by out-of-state resources, not necessarily Maine policy. We have a product that states south of us might want to buy, and I think investment in that product is a win-win for all of us. But that doesn't come out of Maine ratepayers' pockets. It comes out of states south of us.
Gotcha. Patrick, before we take a break, we heard talk about the solar bill and how it didn't pass. There are still opportunities, though, for investment in solar outside of that bill, aren't there? You're on Maine Efficiency Trust, and you decide how those resources get allocated between various renewable things like solar or like heat pumps or other alternatives, don't you?
Yeah, to give a little context, the legislature made a decision to create and provide independence to Efficiency Maine Trust. They are allocated millions of dollars annually, and the staff makes recommendations to the trust for the best use of that funding from ratepayers. There's nothing that precludes the Efficiency Maine Trust from developing a rebate for solar. There's $50 million available. I think it sets a poor precedent when Efficiency Maine Trust makes a decision for the best use of that revenue, and the legislature says, no, instead of doing this, or we should, instead of putting funding into efficiency, into heat pumps, into natural gas expansion, we should select a technology, above all, for ratepayer support. Really, that should be decided by experts. The legislature should not be in the job of picking what types of technologies should receive rebates. There was a reason why they created the independence at Efficiency Maine Trust. We shouldn't have let the legislature governing that level of minutia at EMT.
We'll get back and talk some more about the politics of renewable energy right after this break. Thanks for joining us.
Now is the time. If you're ready for a home loan or a home repair, if you want to get behind the wheel of a new vehicle, make it happen with a visit to your local Maine credit union. For low loan rates, great terms, and decisions made locally. Everything feels right about a credit union, starting with people who are always willing to work with you. If you want a better way to borrow, join a Maine credit union, your best financial choice. Now is the time.
At MacPage, we believe in developing relationships, earning trust, addressing complex issues, and making a difference. We enjoy the people we serve and care about the work we do, providing integrated accounting, consulting, and tax services to our clients throughout New England and across the country. Please visit us at macpage.com to learn more.
And welcome back. We're talking about the renewable energy and the role of the legislature and the role of the P.U.C. Tell me, right before the break, Patrick mentioned the fact that Efficiency Maine Trust tries to make these decisions about allocating scarce resources on subsidies based upon some science and some data. Well, why doesn't that make sense? And why should the legislature be picking winners and losers? Solar above wind, wind above hydropower, hydropower above thermo. Why shouldn't that be a decision for people who really know what the heck they're talking about?
Well, there are lots of ways to arrive at different conclusions. Today, the cost for solar electricity, if you amortize it over the 25-year warranty life of the panels, you get your own clean renewable electricity at 6 to 7 cents per kilowatt hour. That's compared to 14 cents per kilowatt hour from gas-fired generation from the utility grid. So we think that that's a legitimate way to calculate that economic opportunity for Maine ratepayers. Would you like to generate your own electricity on your rooftop at 6 or 7 cents, or would you rather pay for fossil fuel generated electricity at 14 cents a kilowatt hour? So, the numbers do get shifted around based on one's perspective, whether you're in the legislature or at Efficiency Maine Trust. We feel like there's still a good opportunity for us to work together. We're all here for the best interest of Maine. I'm raising my family here. Jeremy is. These guys are both Mainers. We all want the best outcome for this state. So we're not saying our technology is better than all the rest. It's a silver buckshot approach to dealing with Maine's serious problems. We have the highest per capita greenhouse gas emissions in New England. That's a big problem for Maine. You can solve some of that problem by switching to cleaner natural gas, but you can't get all the way there with natural gas. You need a lot of different solutions. Solar and wind are two of those pieces of the renewable energy solution that we need to focus on going forward.
Thanks. Jeremy, solar and wind, let's focus on those two just for a second. The argument is made, well, look, they're great sources of renewable energy for sure, but because we don't know when the wind's going to blow and we don't know when the sun's going to shine, particularly it seems lately around here, it doesn't help cut down the need for generating facilities, because when the sun isn't shining, you're still going to need that power produced somewhere. How do you react to that?
Well, I mean, the grid operators in Maine and New England, that's ISO New England, they're able to integrate variable resources very efficiently. Maine is lucky. We're not the first to slide down the razor's edge. We have decades of experience that we can use from other parts of the United States, other parts of Europe. This is not something that we're just sort of playing a guessing game and hoping it works. That's why you have a variety of different resources that you include in the generation mix, and that includes baseload systems like biomass or natural gas or nuclear or oil or coal. That helps balance out the times when the wind isn't blowing or the sun isn't shining. So there's plenty of opportunities to cost effectively and reasonably include intermittent resources into the mix.
Let me follow up with one other question, if I could, with you. The promise, I don't mean that anyone made a contract, but the hope at least was with the development of the wind industry in Maine, and we've seen certainly many wind farms being built here, that manufacturing would follow, that the turbines would be built in Maine, that the other parts would be built in Maine. That really hasn't happened. From your perspective, why not, and how can we get it here?
Well, two reasons. Primarily because we only have about 400 or 500 megawatts operating in the state, and you compare that to, say, Texas, which has about 11,000 megawatts. So, these large manufacturers, the GEs of the world, the Vestises, they're looking for large amounts of wind to service in an area. And also policy stability, both at the federal and state level. Certainly for the last number of years, there's been pretty big question of whether Maine will continue with its commitment to its, its renewable goals, its wind power goals. And then at the federal level, there's been a lot of sort of boom or bust with the incentive that's provided via the production tax credit.
Gotcha. Hannah?
Great.
Thank you.
Patrick, so obviously there was quite a bit of criticism of the Stat Oil pulling out of Maine and concern about, is Maine really looking for big capital investment in wind? That's obviously a project that would have brought a lot of money and jobs. So how would you characterize, that, I think, what some people would call a failure, and just in general the governor's approach to big wind projects?
Certainly. I think it's important to note that at this time, it's Maine that's making the investment. These are long-term contracts that ratepayers will support. We obviously want that type of investment when it makes sense for ratepayers and for the Maine economy. I think it was a really challenging situation. We had the University of Maine, a separate technology, Statoil, a different technology. The two are competing for a federal grant. Obviously, the best solution would be a combined project between the two. That didn't materialize. We were forced into a situation where the legislature and with the governor's support, we provided the opportunity for the Public Utilities Commission to make a decision on which makes sense for the state of Maine. Is it the university or is it this Norwegian company? Ultimately, given that uncertainty, Statoil decided not to proceed. I thought that was unfortunate. As you may know, the Department of Energy has selected the University of Maine consortium for a grant of up to $5 million for this next fiscal year. They were selected one of the top 5 technologies. It's an open question. What technology will be the one that brings offshore wind to a competitive level that makes sense for our economy? Maine, the university, is still in the game, and we need to continue to support that research at the university.
Great, thank you. Mark, you talked about how the P.U.C.'s job is really to enforce what the legislature puts in place in terms of policy. How would you characterize our state policy on renewable energy and its encouragement as compared to other New England states?
Yes, I think our policy on renewable energy at this point has been very positive. I think if you look at generation assets in Maine, we roughly we generate in excess of 50% from renewable resources. That's tremendous. If you look at states south of us, like Massachusetts, they're down at about 9%. So they see they need to be catching up, and they're putting more aggressive policies in place to catch up. But at this point in time, we are dramatically ahead of the rest of the states.
And how much of that is hydro? I know there's been some.
A significant portion of it is hydro, and a significant portion is biomass. I think they probably make up the majority of it.
And are our specific incentives for wind, solar, other renewables similar to other New England states?
I'm not exactly certain on the incentives of the other states, but what I have seen is that the majority of development is driven by other states' renewable energy credits, for instance. In Maine, our renewable energy credits are trading at relatively low levels compared to the other states, but we have the resource, and the other states are promoting a policy that is driving their credit price up, which then enables development in the state of Maine. So I don't see that as an issue.
Great. Well, we had a great panel here today. The time went by far too quickly. These guys are incredible experts, and we could have talked to them for hours and educated you on every detail of renewable energy policy, but it was great to dive in with at least a quick snippet, and Roger and I will be right back.
Now is the time. If you're ready for a home loan or a home repair, if you want to get behind the wheel of a new vehicle, make it happen with a visit to your local Maine credit union. For low loan rates, great terms, and decisions made locally. Everything feels right about a credit union, starting with people who are always willing to work with you. If you want a better way to borrow, join a Maine credit union, your best financial choice. Now is the time.
At MacPage, we believe in developing relationships, earning trust, addressing complex issues, and making a difference. We enjoy the people we serve and care about the work we do, providing integrated accounting, consulting, and tax services to our clients throughout New England and across the country. Please visit us at macpage.com to learn more.
Welcome back. That was a great panel, Roger. Obviously the challenges with these issues are they're so complicated, and we really only started to touch on, all the various debates.
Use it 3 hours.
3 hours. I don't know if our viewers would make it that long, but it's a really, to nerds like you and me, it's an interesting subject. Obviously, we talked about, what happened with Statoil, which was, many people view as a big failure for Maine. We had a huge company willing to put a lot of capital into making Maine a leader in offshore energy, and that fell through. Hopefully, as Patrick Woodcock said, there's some chance that's going to come back. But, Maine has been pushing forward with wind power. We have seen a lot of development, but we're still kind of at the beginning stages. I personally believe it's the right way to go. We need to be worried about our climate. We need to, really become independent from all the power sources and energy sources that we're relying on around the world, but a lot of complicated issues.
Sure, and I can't disagree with anything you just said. I mean, we know where we want to be, and that's they're getting most of our power from renewables. But, at a time when the cost of electricity here is about twice the national average, we got to be very careful about how we get there. I mean, for solar, I think is a good example. We had a good discussion about solar. Solar installations are about $15,000 or $20,000 per household. And even with the subsidy folks can get through the federal tax credit, it's still expensive. So as Patrick Woodcock was saying, when making difficult decisions between help lowering the cost, say, of heating for low-income Mainers or helping someone who can really afford a $20,000 installation to get it, you know, they're very, very tough choices.
And really, I mean, honestly, I don't disagree with you, and it's why I believe Maine needs, and I think we heard a little bit today, an all of the above strategy. You know, we need to make our homes more efficient so we burn less energy in general. You know, we need to focus on solar where it's doable, especially for businesses, because it actually can lower business costs. And then we need to think about wind and, you know, all the other means. So, you know, it's a lot on the table. We'll hear about it a lot this governor's race. I know the legislature will keep talking about it. And, you know, energy is only going to become a bigger and bigger issue in our state.
It is. You know who's very interested in this issue? Gary Crocker is. In fact, Gary has a particular interest in wind energy, and we'll now hear his take.
Environmental issues have always been a concern to me and Mother. Why, just the other day, Mother was all wound up about how bad the smell was inside our trailer. I think her exact words were, "It smells like the mill in here." My response didn't help one little bit when I blurted out, "Well, you're the one that served baked beans last night." But that exchange got me to thinking. Wind power has its supporters, and there are definitely good points. But opponents have raised some legitimate concerns, such as seagulls getting tangled up in turbines. So I put my brain trust to work on the problem, and I think we found a win-win-win solution. Mert and the boys came up with PWTs, personal wind turbines. Yeah, threaten precious wildlife, no siree, Bob. It's a self-contained unit that you will attach to Grandpa's lazy boy recliner, and here's the best part. It's powered by baked beans, a renewable resource of the first order. Some assembly will be required, and Grandpa's recliner will need to be slightly modified, but the long and short of it is, the more beans Grandpa eats, the more power is available to the family. And plans are already in the works for smaller units for the kids, in the event of emergency situations like the ice storm we had last winter. Anyway, we're pretty sure it's a winner. I mean, no more complaining about Grandpa backfiring after dinner. Nope, now everybody will be cheering him on, especially in January when it's 20 below with a wind chill that's so cold you don't dare to mention it in front of the kids. And no one wants to leave the house to get firewood. No need anymore. Now you can just pass Grandpa a plate of beans, sit back and enjoy some wind power generation. Yeah.
Well, you know, you can always count on Gary for innovation. Father's Day is coming up, and I don't know how my father will feel about it, but, you know, maybe your kids could invest in a recliner for you, Roger.
Well, maybe my wife is watching. I don't know if you are. Did you hear that, Bertie? We'll see. But it was a great show. I certainly learned a lot. And we'll be back next time, Hannah and I, on Pingree and Kate's The Maine Event. Thanks for watching.
This program has been brought to you by Logisticare, the nation's leading provider of specialized transportation network management to state and local government clients. By Maine's credit unions, now is the time for a credit union. There is one for you. And by MacPage, developing relationships, earning trust, addressing complex issues, and making a difference.